Hi, I'm Bethany, and I'm here at the Santa Barbara Awakened World Film Festival of 2014. And we are here with the director, so the writers, and the producers of What the Bleep Do We Know. Let's hear what they have to say.
These memories are coming up, and I said, me too. Every frame,
Yeah, you're like,
I remember where I was, I remember what I was doing, I remember what was going on. So it was an amazing trip down memory lane. And the other thing I was saying on stage as well is that, we all created the film, so the film is in effect, but then what happened is the film began working on us. And also, the film being out there, all the people that actually saw the film and spoke to us changed our lives as well. So it's pretty emotional.
That's awesome. I mean, it's really odd and a little. I mean, it's strange for me to go places and go to a speaking engagement. Like, I've been opening my new film in theaters, and people find out that I made What the Bleep, and they're like, "That film changed my life," and then you changed my life, and to hear that and to think that and to just be like, I just was making, I was making a movie, and my usual response is, yeah, it changed my life too. But that for me is, I think, been the most interesting experience for me, just going out in the world, not even 10 years, even 10 years later, people still really remembering their experience.
Right.
And that's really been the profound thing for me.
Right.
Awesome. Well, we were just asking the question, Will, what was it like seeing the film 10 years later?
Seeing it 10 years later, there was two things. One, because I was sitting next to Mark, and I haven't seen Mark in many years. All these I was flooded with all these memories of what we went through to make this crazy film, and the amount of work it was to get this thing to work. And I was exhausted watching that. The other thing that I noticed was it just how, someone asked when we were up there, what would you have done different? And, Betsy basically said, well, we wouldn't have done anything different. And I had the same reaction. It was like, wow, I'm kind of amazed we were able to pull it together. The amount of different aspects and elements that we had, and they all basically worked. So I was like, wow, we did good. I was struck by, actually, one thing, I was struck by how beautiful it was, and that was, mostly Mark's doing, the
aesthetic Nazi.
Yeah, and it was like, wow. Well, and also Betsy was like, if we're gonna do outlandish stuff, we can't have it anything other than really at a high level, because people will dismiss it for that. So between those two things, and so I was like, wow, this is really good.
I feel like, I have seen it on the big screen, recently, actually, and I think that, one of the things that people don't know, and people ask me all the time, what was it like to make the movie? And I always say, I think I gave birth to my children easier than making this film. And it was really hard, and it took a lot of commitment to keep going. When I can remember how many times we thought, screw it, this is never gonna happen, I quit, and that we just persevered, because I think that's the process of filmmaking. No matter what kind of movie you're making, I think everybody goes through that dark night of the soul, and then the elation afterwards. And I have to say one thing, that when I got brought on this film, I was brought on originally as a line producer, and I have these questions that when you're going to start messing with somebody else's money, you want to be really clear about what it is their expectations are. And we talk a lot about setting intention in the movie, and Dr. Joe, I create my day. And I remember meeting with Will and sitting down with him to go, okay, I'm going to ask this crazy man these questions. And I said to him, Will, what is it that you want to happen with this film? And he looked me dead in the face, stone cold sober, and said, I want 100 million people to see this movie. And he meant it. And that was sort of the intention that we all rode with, was like, this is what he set down the gauntlet of, here's what we have to do, and we couldn't settle for less.
Very cool. I love how you had every single person read the script. That's really special, and really just shows the intention you all had behind the film and where your heart was. And I was wondering, what made the idea come together? How did you all meet? Did you know each other for years? Or How did this happen?
Well, kind of think of it this. I came up with this analogy. Think of like the pickup intramural basketball team getting to the NCAA finals, because I had helped someone 25 years before with his master's project in 16 millimeter, which wasn't real filmmaking. Mark had never directed before. He was a cinematographer, did great cinematography, and never done that. Betsy had never been so much in the creative thing. She had produced some small independent films, so none of us had been really in the creative thing. I met Mark because we were both going to the Ramtha school. And then, at one point, Mark, who knew more about filmmaking than I did, said, Will, you're out of your league. You need a producer. You should talk to Betsy. And then it's like, okay, well, then I guess Betsy's on too. And so it was like this pickup team of people who didn't know each other. And it's just, we were blessed that it just was this weird combo plate that worked. So,
and I just want to say this because I know I'm yamming, but this is true and it's awesome. Mark and I knew each other from the porn industry.
Not hardcore, but
Not hardcore, but it's true. So, I mean, the funny thing about that, it's so
I wish
awesome.
you would clarify that statement.
No,
I
because
really
it's
wish you would
true.
clarify that.
It's great. Listen, I was there. It wasn't hardcore, but the point is that we just came from what I love to tell people, because one of the things that happened at the end of the movie that came out was people would get really mad at us because we didn't label. Like in typical documentary form, when the expert comes on, you put the name underneath them and you label everything, and we didn't do that. And people were mad, remember? In the beginning, they were very angry. And the reason I say that is because people have this tendency to be really judgmental about where people come from and what their credentials are. And so I love to tell people, yeah, I produced softcore porn and Mark shot some. And and guess what? We also made one of the most successful spiritual movies of all time. So, you can't really, there's no way to put a finger on, well, this person, just because they did this and label them that way. And that's sort of why I like to share that story, because it's true. I mean, once you hear porn, you go, oh, they can't do it. They're screwed for life. They're going to hell.
And that's just such a testament to where spirituality is coming today. I think that's the perfect background to this film too, because really spirituality is about getting out of judgment. And I thought about that too during the film. I was like, oh, where are the names of these people? Is that Jay-Z Knight? I'm asking myself these questions. I'm Googling it while I'm watching the film. And it was, and I was like, oh, I bet they were very intentional about not putting the name of the people in the film right away, because it gets you go right straight into judgment. Like, oh, they're a physicist or they're whoever.
I think the way that was we didn't really know when to do it, and everyone had different ideas, and so it was one of those things, until we figured it out, we just wouldn't have it. Right. And then at a certain point, we're like, we kind of like it, because after a certain point, you're then, well, I'm just going to listen to this person. I don't really care who he is, because what the fuck do they know?
Well, it's amazing what happens when you see letters behind people's names, and we all change our listening around that, as if somehow they're going to know things. And a lot of what we were saying, some people with a bunch of letters wouldn't like. So it makes sense that you would say, okay, let's just take away the trappings of how you're going to listen, and just decide to listen, just to really hear and experience what someone's saying, versus deciding that what they're saying is okay because they seem to have some sort of credential around it.
Anything to say about that?
No. No.
Okay, and one very last question. How can the viewers apply the principles in What the Bleep more in a daily way? Like, how do you apply the principles that you were presenting in What the Bleep in your life?
Okay, I mean, I think I wrote a blog, and actually Betsy read it, but there's a really amazing scientist that I work with, and he said to me one day, and this is in a screenplay that I just wrote, he said that the best scientists are children, like kindergartners. And I said, how come? He says, because they ask why a lot. Why? And they haven't figured it all out yet. So I think having that kind of curiosity, we don't really know a lot about consciousness. That was one of the things discussed. We know very, very little. But having curiosity is very important. Asking questions is very important. About 99% of science has been disproven. So probably a bunch of things we're saying now, we'll find a bunch of new ways to understand them. So just staying open, asking questions, not thinking you have the final answer.
I love that.
Clearly our movie had some humor. Just a little bit, and so I go with not take everything so seriously. Life is supposed to be fun. Go out and explore and have a good time.
Me too. Me three. And then what was the question again?
It was, how do you apply the principles in What the Bleep to your life?
Well, it changes with time. Currently, I'm in what I would call the observer phase of just more and more just observing, the silent watcher, whatever you want to call it, the little thing that's up there watching me do my shtick. And, becoming more aware of when I'm starting to do my shtick, that it's my shtick. And then it's kind of like, well, Will, do you really want to do that again? And the answer's starting to come back more and more like, oh, God, I'm really bored with you, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of bored too. So that's just for me. So it's like you just take any aspect of that you are intrigued by and you just do it. You just practice. It's like playing the piano. You just got to do it.
Love that. Well, thank you guys so much for talking with us. And again, this is the writers and producers of What the Bleep Do We Know, and directors of What the Bleep Do We Know.